The lighthouse stood as a solitary sentinel against the relentless fury of the North Atlantic. Its whitewashed walls, weathered by decades of salt spray and gale-force winds, bore the scars of countless storms. The narrow winding path that led to the structure was barely visible beneath a thick blanket of fog, which rolled in from the sea like a ghostly shroud. The air was heavy with the scent of brine and damp earth, and the distant cry of gulls echoed eerily through the mist. It was here, in this isolated and unforgiving landscape, that the last lighthouse keeper, Thomas Grayson, had spent the better part of his life. Thomas had arrived at Black Reef in the spring of 19, a young man with a head full of dreams and a heart full of wonder. Back then, the lighthouse was still a vital navigational aid, its powerful beam cutting through the darkness to guide ships safely past the treacherous rocks below. But as the years passed, technology advanced, and the need for human keepers dwindled. Automated systems took over, and one by one, the lighthouses along the coast were decommissioned. Black Reef, however, remained active, a relic of a bygone era, and Thomas stayed on, steadfast in his duty. Now in the autumn of his life, Thomas was a figure of quiet resilience. His once dark hair had turned to silver, and his face was lined with the marks of a life lived in the elements. Yet, there was a strength in his bearing, a quiet determination that spoke of a man who had faced the worst that nature could throw at him and had emerged unbroken. He moved with the deliberate pace of someone who had long since learned to conserve his energy, his boots crunching on the gravel path. As he made his way to the lighthouse door, inside, the lighthouse was a world unto itself. The ground floor housed the living quarters, a modest space that was both functional and comforting. A small kitchenette stood against one wall, its shelves stocked with canned goods and dried provisions. A wooden table, scarred with years of use, occupied the center of the room, flanked by two sturdy chairs. Against the far wall, a narrow staircase spiraled upward, leading to the lantern room at the top of the tower. The walls were adorned with maps and charts, their edges frayed and yellowed with age, and a brass-framed photograph of a younger Thomas, standing proudly beside the lighthouse, hung in a place of honor. Thomas moved through the space with the ease of long familiarity, his hands brushing against the surfaces as if to reassure himself of their solidity. He paused by the window, gazing out at the sea, which stretched away to the horizon in an endless expanse of gray. The waves crashed against the rocks below, their rhythm a constant, unchanging backdrop to his life. He had seen the sea in all its moods, calm and serene, wild and tempestuous, and he had come to know its secrets, its patterns, its whispers. It was a relationship built on mutual respect, a bond forged through years of solitude and introspection. As the day wore on, Thomas set about his daily tasks with the precision of a man who had long since mastered his routine. He checked the oil levels in the lantern, trimmed the wick, and polished the lenses until they gleamed. The light itself was a marvel of engineering, a Fresnel lens that magnified the flame into a powerful beam visible for miles. It was a piece of history, a testament to the ingenuity of those who had come before him, and Thomas treated it with the reverence it deserved. He climbed the stairs to the lantern room, his footsteps echoing in the narrow space, and lit the flame. The light sprang to life, casting a warm, golden glow that pierced the gathering dusk. Outside, the fog had thickened, wrapping the lighthouse in a cocoon of mist. The beam of light cut through the gloom, a beacon of hope for any ship that might be out there, lost and searching for safe passage. Thomas stood at the window, watching the light as it swept across the sea, its steady rhythm, a comforting presence. He knew that his time at Black Reef was drawing to a close. The authorities had informed him that the lighthouse would soon be automated, and his services would no longer be required. It was a decision born of progress, of efficiency. But to Thomas, it felt like the end of an era. As night fell, Thomas retreated to his chair by the stove, a cup of tea cradled in his hands. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows and stirring the curtains. He sat in silence, listening to the familiar sounds of the lighthouse, the creak of the stairs, the hum of the lantern, the distant crash of the waves. These were the sounds of his life, the soundtrack to his solitude. He thought of the ships that had passed by, unseen in the darkness, guided safely by his light. He thought of the storms he had weathered, the nights he had spent alone, keeping watch over the sea. And he thought of the future, of what lay beyond the lighthouse, beyond the life he had known for so long. For now, though, he was content to sit and watch the light as it swept across the waves, a steady, unchanging presence in a world that was always in flux. The last lighthouse keeper, as he had come to be known, was a man out of time, a relic of a bygone era. But in his heart, he knew that his work, his light, had made a difference. And that, perhaps, was enough. This concludes Scene 1. Let me know if you'd like to proceed with Scene 2, or if there are any adjustments you'd like to make to this scene.